Hello and welcome to another chapter of Briefly Schmaltzy, where we make literary cocktails and then read said inspiration over the internet. I don't know if you could tell from my festive attire, but today's literary cocktail is inspired by the poem/book The Night Before Christmas by Clement C. Seymour Christmas, if you know what I mean. I almost want to say The Nightmare Before Christmas, but that's a little different. As always, please feel free to follow along in the recipe below, and leave a comment, why don't you? What should we be reading next? So this is more of a classic cocktail, which I think is fitting of a classic story. But just like the fire, it is so delightful. I actually made this a while ago when I first started bartending. I came back home and I wanted to celebrate being done for the evening. Not a creature was stirring, except for me. Shall we dive down the cocktail chimney with a bound? I'm so sorry. Alright, first things first. I made a little chamomile simple syrup. So the inspiration for this cocktail comes from the sugar plum fairies dancing around in your head. So I was thinking it's nighttime, you're sleepy, you're cozy, you're thinking of Santa Claus. I feel like chamomile tea is a good embodiment of coziness. So we're gonna do half an ounce of chamomile simple syrup. This makes me so jolly. Now, I imagine this is more of a sweeter cocktail, but if you want it a little bit drier, you could always tone down the simple syrup and just use 1/4 an ounce, okay? That said, you are going on my naughty list. Next up, we have our bitters. So I would say the bitters that make this drink are the plum bitters. They're very candied plum tasting, which I think in a cocktail like an old-fashioned just brings everything together. I tend to go a little heavy on these as well, so maybe like 6 dashes. Oh yes. Then I pair these plum bitters with some aromatic bitters. When you roll in the baking spice of these other bitters, you really get some nice clove and cinnamon and allspice notes. Just a couple dashes of these. Once again, I'm adding salt. I feel like we've had salt in every one of our videos so far. I just think if you're building a sweeter cocktail, adding in some salt can really balance things out. Now it's time for the brandy. We'll use about 2 ounces of brandy. Oh yes. What's that, you ask? Is it time to stir the ass? Yes. Yes, it is. Would you look at that? Don't be shy, give it all you've got. Usually I like my old fashions over a single block of ice. Fortunately, I have some cubes on hand. It just keeps the drink cold without watering it down so much as you sip it. If you don't have large blocks of ice, you can always just use a single ice cube. That works just fine! Let's strain it up, shall we? Oh, the weather outside is frightful. But the cocktail, as I mentioned earlier, is so delightful. Time for the finishing touch. Just a little orange peel. Give it a little spritz there, huh? And then dash away all the... That's good. It's classic. Kind of get like the salty plum notes. Chamomile is very subtle, it just rounds everything out. And then you get the orange oils just over top. Hits the nose really nicely. It really does evoke sugar plums. They're dancing in my head. It's a good end of night cocktail. Just in time for story time. Let's go read The Night Before Christmas. We wish you a Merry Christmas. We wish you a Merry Christmas. First, a brief toast. Hey, happy holidays! I hope you have a festive and joyous season despite the circumstances. The Night Before Christmas by Clement C. 'Twas the night before Christmas, when all through the house not a creature was stirring, not even a mouse. The stockings were hung by the chimney with care, in hopes that St. Nicholas soon would be there. The children were nestled all snug in their beds, while visions of sugar plums danced in their heads. And Mamma in her kerchief and I in my cap
had just settled down for a long winter's nap, when out on the lawn there arose such a clatter. I sprang from my bed to see what was the matter. Away to the window I flew like a flash, tore open the shutters, and threw up the sash. The moon on the breast of the new-fallen snow gave the lustre of midday to objects below, when what to my wondering eyes should appear but a miniature sleigh and 8 tiny reindeer, with a little old driver so lively and quick, I knew in a moment it must be Saint Nick. More rapid than eagles his coursers they came, and he whistled and shouted and called them by name. Now Dasher, now Dancer, now Prancer and Vixen, on Comet, on Cupid, on Donder and Blitzen, to the top of the porch, to the top of the wall, now dash away, dash away, dash away all, as dry leaves that before the wild hurricane fly, when they meet with an obstacle mount to the sky. So up on the housetop the coursers they flew, with the sleigh full of toys, and Saint Nicholas too. And then in a twinkling I heard on the roof the prancing and pawing of each little hoof. As I drew in my head and was turning around, down the chimney Saint Nicholas came with a bound. He was dressed all in fur, from his head to his foot, and his clothes were all tarnished with ashes and soot. A bundle of toys he had flung on his back, and he looked like a peddler just opening his pack. His eyes, how they twinkled, his dimples, how merry! His cheeks were like roses, his nose like a cherry. His droll little mouth was drawn up like a bow, and the beard of his chin was as white as the snow. The stump of a pipe he held tight in his teeth, and the smoke it encircled his head like a wreath. He had a broad face and a little round belly that shook when he laughed like a bowl full of jelly. He was chubby and plump, a right jolly old elf, and I laughed when I saw him in spite of myself. A wink of his eye and a twist of his head soon gave me to know I had nothing to dread. He spoke not a word, but went straight to his work, and filled all the stockings, then turned with a jerk, and laying his finger aside of his nose, and giving a nod, up the chimney he rose. He sprang to his sleigh, to his team gave a whistle, and away they all flew like the down of a thistle. But I heard him exclaim ere he drove out of sight, "Merry Christmas to all, and to all a good night." Cheers.